Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Yes Go. I am your host, Coach A.M. Williams, and I have the privilege and pleasure to have with me a special guest, Chris Cayer. And I just want to take a moment and say, if you're having, if you're saying to yourself, man, I absolutely love these interviews. I absolutely love this content. I love today's interview. I love all the guest interview. Make sure you go to yesgo.live, and there's just so much material there from previous guests who shared their stories with us. You can get that content right there. And if you're saying, you know what, I believe this stuff can help me, we even have a membership site there, a membership component where you can sign up for a membership. It's only $20 per month, and you're going to get some amazing training that's going to help you address the problem areas that you're having right now in your business to move you forward in a powerful and productive way. Make sure you go and check out yesgo.live. I want to come back and say, Chris, the last segment you gave us with your experience with the call center, and even with the blue collar experience that you had, it's phenomenal. And to think that you were doing that between the ages of 13 and 15 and leading a group of guys at that age is phenomenal. I mean, I tell you a lot. You're like a unicorn in many respects. But what I want to do now is I want to ask you the $1 trillion question. Chris, what was your yes go moment?
So the first one, and I've had several, but the first occasion was shortly after that. I'd gotten into university, and my stepfather trained me in competitive intelligence. And at that point, again, I was looking at trying to get into something a little more grown up as a summer job or as a year-long job. And the companies weren't ready to hire me again because they just thought I was too smart. I'd get bored. That
Mm.
really was their big answer. I was overqualified by being underqualified, and so I couldn't win. There was no opportunity there. And at the same time, I found that a lot of business owners, especially small consultancy business owners, valued what I had to say, especially with the competitive intelligence certification under me. Um, they knew it was a bit of a gamble taking advice from somebody who wasn't even 18 yet, but what I said made a lot of sense. So I started a company called Bargain Marketing with a couple of friends of mine. And we did a lot of, at that point, web development had just started. So we did some websites to demonstrate what we could do. And so one of the first major websites we built was a website called guidetoottawa.com. And an interesting stat about Guide to Ottawa is that Google came out just shortly thereafter. And we'd already gotten in 1 month to 1 million regular visitors faster than Google did when it took off.
Wow.
So back in the infancy of this stuff, we did really, really well. Now, the other thing that came out with that was a really strong ability to bring businesses to major events. So major trade shows were a big, big deal at the time. And you'd have 100 or more, 150,000 people walk through your event past your stall over a 2 or 3 day window. And so it was really, really important for these small consultancies to do well at these events. And most of them would collect a bunch of business cards, but they couldn't close them. They didn't know how to systematize it. They didn't know how to follow up. And so most of those cards went to waste. And their cards were in the trash bin by the time the people left the event. They weren't standing out either. So if they were going to do things on a dime budget, which bargain marketing was designed to fit that niche, and again, I was selling myself at that level that I thought people would buy from me because of my age. Not because of what I knew, but because of how old I was and what I thought people would expect me to be able to do. So at that point, I figured out a few really interesting tricks. So one example, at that point, business cards were the issue. How do you get a business card to stand out? And so what we did for our business cards is we took a pair of scissors, and on every business card we cut one of the corners off, either the top left or the top right one. And the reason we did that was because when you grabbed a stack of business cards, you used to kind of flip through them to find the one you wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And ours would always have a gap. So ours would always, with a magician's force, always, always, always be one of the ones that would pop to the shuffle. Ours would always be one that would stand out because of the gap it created. So we got a boatload of business because people actually got to read our card.
That's just stuff people just don't think about. Like, it's, again, but simple solutions, you know.
And the card was cheap card stock, red on white, said bargain marketing, said our address. We solve your problems on a bargain. And you look at the card, you figure out what you just got played. You say, all right, I better call them up. And that's how we got our business.
Wow.
But we took 50 or 60 companies to major trade shows and wowed them. I remember one trade show in particular was an awful trade show. The previous year that had almost 250,000 people through. That year they literally had 12.
Wow.
12 people walked through. 100 booths, but only 12 people walked through. And the booth attendees were all furious. We still made, I think it was $168,000 for our $12,000 investment. There were only 12 people, but I sold all the other booths. That there's no such thing as a bad event if you know what you're doing. So that's the kind of thing where I can take that, show another business the value that that brings, and all of a sudden, now there's a distinct reason to hire me to go help them. And it doesn't matter what my age is. It doesn't matter what my education. It doesn't matter any of that stuff. I can demonstrate, here's how I can help you. But yeah, I need that.
I just, like, I realized that what many people don't have a clue on what they just heard. Okay. But like, from the simplicity of cutting out a corner on a business card. Okay. Because we're so wired, you know, Chris, to employ another high dollar tactic to get noticed, and you just went to the card and cut off the edge of it. Yeah. I mean, and it got people to look at your card more. You attracted more business, and even in an arena where an event, a trade show where only 12 people went through, you guys still did over $160,000 on that trade show. This, like, what I'm saying to you, audience, right now, if you don't understand the importance of having someone like Chris Cayer on your board of advisors, on your, you know, as a contract, a consultant, a project manager, and if you don't have someone who specializes in competitive intelligence, the amount of money that you could be losing following the wind, going with the wind, going with what everybody else is doing, it's going to cost you significantly. I am so glad I got this guy in my corner. I listen very intently to everything that you share for this reason, for these reasons alone. But I have to ask you a very interesting question here, Chris, because one of the things I told you that you have a very unique gift in being able to make what most people pride themselves on communicating with complexity. You have the ability to make it, I'm just going to say it, like, really simple, stupid.
Yeah.
And when you share this stuff here and you look at it, it's like you really don't have any other excuse. But my question to you is, considering that, and somebody heard something today that says, man, I'm just thinking too hard about this thing.
Yeah.
I'm thinking too, you know, it's not as difficult as it seems. Why do you think so many entrepreneurs are challenged with their yes go moments. It could be, and I'm not just limited into just starting a business, but
Yeah.
maybe taking that business to the next phase. What have you noticed to be a common, thread between entrepreneurs and why they have such hesitancy about
So
taking this step?
in 2013, I got curious about exactly that point. I'd seen enough that I had my own suspicions, my own thoughts about it, but I like to have some empirical evidence. So I am very well connected through LinkedIn and was able to get 3 groups of 450 experts. Each group was composed of experts on a specific subject matter related to failure. Why do projects fail was one group, why do businesses fail was another, and why do personal goals fail was another. Each of those 3 different subject matters had 450 world-class experts on how to get people to succeed in spite of, how to recover from. These are people who saw exactly what that issue is every day in every job that they do, every client they take on. So I asked them point blank, what's the number one cause of failure as far as you're concerned? And I expected 3 different batteries of different answers. I was blown away by the fact that all 3 groups had the same identical answers within 2.1% of each other.
Wow.
Identical answers. And the answers basically went like this: 70% of all failure comes from some form of fear. Fear of success, fear of judgment, fear of failure, fear of you name it, fear of lack of support, fear of whatever. 20% was lack of driving need or desire. They just didn't want it badly. They didn't need it.
Mm.
And the last 10% was all other causes of failure combined. That includes lack of funding, lack of resources, lack of time, lack of assistance, lack of everything. That's only 10% of all failure. That means 90% of failure is somewhere between our ears.
Mm.
So I did more research and discovered that a lot of that comes from this trend that society has gone through worldwide, but especially in the US, away from entrepreneurship in the first place. And you see it in this big battle over university right now. Everybody's sending their kids to university so that they can go get a good job. And
Hmm.
the logic behind that, yeah, there's lots of stats that show that once you've got your degrees, your income is more likely to be higher than somebody who doesn't have one. Only that data is skewed. Because when you compare
Hmm.
that to the incomes of the people who didn't have degrees but had their own business in the 50s through the 70s on a comparative basis, those people made a lot more money than
Hmm.
people who had degrees did, because they're the
Hmm.
people who hired the people with degrees.
Hmm.
And that was another consideration when I was in university myself and I was thinking about what I was going to do. And I looked at it and I said, all right, so I'm going to get a job which needs a degree. That degree, I could go into medicine. Medicine pays well,
Hmm.
but I don't like seeing that much pain every day. All those hurt people that a lot of them I can't help, right? That there's a certain point in life where I can't fix it, that there's no medical solution to that particular problem. That's not how I wanted to spend my life. So that took out medicine and that took out veterinary science as well. I looked at law. Lawyers make a lot of money, but a lot of them are dealing with really strong conflicts where people are seriously not happy. One of them's going to jail. One of them's going bankrupt. Lots of people were very unhappy in the legal profession. Or I could write contracts all day. Oh, is that fun?
Mm.
Yeah, no, that's not on my to-do list either. So when you take those particular professions off, the list of professions that where you needed a university degree to do it, not that many. And all of them require you to work for somebody else. Somebody else gets paid more to hire your butt. What's their qualification? They're an entrepreneur. They
Wow.
started a business.
Wow. And you literally could drop the mic right there, because that's the reality of the situation. I'm going to advise you listeners to make sure you go back and listen to this segment again, because the statistics from his research is profound. and staggering. When we come back from this commercial, Chris, we're going to talk about the um, the other side of YesGo, what you've been able to do and to accomplish. Some of it speaks for itself, but I will give you a chance to talk about it. We'll be right back